Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Becca. I'm a licensed mental health therapist and I make content all things mental wellness, fitness, and lifestyle. If you caught my last video, you know that I made a video talking about 5 tips to prioritize your mental health. Today, we're going to be digging deeper into tip number 1 on self-compassion. This is such a powerful tool to use to prioritize your mental health. Let's go ahead and dig deeper into how you can be more self-compassionate and how you can implement this in your own life. Self-compassion sounds like one of those buzzwords that we hear all of the time in so many different contexts, but it can actually be very practical to use and implement in your own life when done correctly. Self-compassion essentially is showing yourself that same kindness that you would show somebody else. This is something that we talked a little bit about in the mental health tips video. So we're going to talk about how you can actually implement self-compassion into your everyday life. It's about noticing our shortcomings, our flaws, and still choosing to be kind and love ourselves anyways. It's about the story that we tell ourselves in our head when we say we're not enough versus when we say we are enough, when we say we're not worthy, when we say we are worthy. It's that little inner voice in your head that is telling you to either be mean to yourself or to be kind to yourself. And so the better we're able to use self-compassion to our advantage, the more that we'll actually be able to use that as a priority in our mental health. So let me share with you a personal example. I'm one of those people who feels like they always need to be productive. I love keeping to-do lists. I love having things that I need to check off, different tasks that I need to complete during the day. But when I'm not able to finish all of those tasks, or I feel like I fell short in a certain way, the type of message that usually goes through my head is I wasted my day. I didn't get enough things done. I was not productive today. I wasted the time that I had today. I feel like this is just a classic case of being way too hard on myself and really trying to be a perfectionist in certain ways, making sure that things get done, and then also that things get done the way that I want them to get done, and almost trying to make things be like perfect. Life is not perfect, and you know that you can't be perfect all the time. So this was just a setup or a recipe for disaster of being too self-critical about myself. But here's where self-compassion comes in. In my personal example, self-compassion looks like giving myself that grace for not completing the things that I didn't get done. It might be rewriting that narrative in my head of I wasn't productive enough. Self-compassion for me looks like pausing and realizing that I'm human, I make mistakes, I fall short, I have shortcomings, not everything is going to be perfect. I feel like that first moment to pause and to just recognize that I'm human is the very first step in being self-compassionate towards myself. Also, what this looks like for me is giving myself that permission to feel disappointed or like to feel upset that I wasn't able to get the things done. But it's not just sitting there and letting it rest. It's recognizing that that's the situation that happened, or maybe I wasn't able to complete that specific task, and then moving on from it. It's not dwelling in it. It's not calling myself things like unproductive, but it's just recognizing it and then moving on. Showing myself self-compassion in that situation is just acknowledging that I'm human, I make mistakes, I have shortcomings, and it's okay. Not to say that it's excuse for not getting the things done that I wanted to get done, but just recognizing that sometimes things just don't happen in the way that I want them to happen. It's not a description of who I am as a person. I'm not a failure. I'm not unproductive overall, but that's just the situation that I was in. So let's talk about how you can practice self-compassion in your own life. One of the first ways that you can practice this is by becoming aware of your self-talk. Your self-talk is the voice or the things that you're telling yourself in your head or out loud. The first step in recognizing your self-talk is awareness, being aware of the thoughts that you tend to have or the things you tend to tell yourself and bringing them to the forefront of your mind, recognizing when you are being too self-critical or when you're being too negative or anything like that. And then once you're aware of the self-talk that you're having and the narrative that you're telling yourself in your head, it's working to change that narrative into something that's more productive and more powerful to work to your advantage. So for example, if you notice that the narrative that you're telling yourself are things like I'm a failure or I'm not good at this, perhaps changing that self-talk to something more positive and more facilitative for growth, such as I'm learning and I'm growing and I'm new at this and I'm going to get better. And also just reminding yourself that it's okay to make mistakes along the way, allowing yourself to be human, allow yourself to have trial and error. Another practical way to practice self-compassion in your life is by writing a letter to yourself. So when you're writing this letter, imagine that you're writing this letter to a friend who's going through a tough time or going through a hard time. What would you offer them? What kind of words would you encourage them with? What type of statements would you make? How would you be there for them? Now take that letter that you would have written to a friend and write it to yourself. What kind of things would you be telling yourself? How would you rewrite those or change the narrative to make your self-talk a little bit more positive? This can help reframe your thoughts and offer yourself that kindness and love that you deserve. So next up, self-compassion also means taking care of yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. I notice that when I'm struggling to balance things like work and personal life or work and my social life, I tend to set aside time for things that I enjoy to offer myself that self-compassion, whether it's exercising, socializing with friends, going to meet my family, journaling, meditating, reading, just doing things that I enjoy is another way that I like to show myself self-compassion. But the thing with this is that I prioritize my self-care by actually setting a time to do those things. It's finding little pockets of mindfulness and pockets of self-care within each and every single day that I have, because things can become overwhelming, and just knowing that I have time set aside, whether it's just for 5 minutes or whether it's an hour long, that I can offer that time for myself for a little moment of self-care is really important, and another way that I show myself that self-compassion. I think it's also important to mention what self-care or self-compassion is not. Self-compassion is not excusing yourself for poor behavior or for shortcomings. It's rather offering yourself some grace, or just allowing yourself to be human and offering yourself that same kindness that you would offer to somebody else. Self-compassion is all about how you handle challenges in your life rather than adding to the challenges that are present. Okay, so to recap some of the practical ways we talked about in practicing self-compassion in your own life. 1 is recognizing what self-compassion is. 2 is being aware of how you speak to yourself and using self-compassionate language when talking about yourself or when talking to yourself. And then 3, practicing different ways to show yourself self-compassion, whether it's engaging in activities that you enjoy or methods of self-care. These steps can really make a world of a difference when it comes to handling life's challenges and life's ups and downs. And overall, at this point, we know that practicing self-compassion is a method of prioritizing your mental health and ensuring that you just have an overall quality of mental wellness. So that is what I have for you when it comes to practicing self-compassion. I hope you find these tips helpful, and I really hope that you find them practical and easy to apply to your own personal life. Be sure to just take a look around at the areas in which you tend to be negative to yourself, or you tend to criticize yourself overly, and see how you can implement any of these methods of self-compassion in those situations. If you haven't seen my full video on the 5 tips to prioritize your mental health, I would recommend checking that out. If you like this video, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. I love to engage with all of you, and I love to know if these tips are helpful, so please leave a comment if you feel inclined to do so. That is all I have for you in this video, and I will see you in my next one.